If you've ever applied for a job, you've almost certainly written a cover letter before. If you've ever hired before, you've almost certainly read your fair share of cover letters. For what seemingly forever, they've been just a part of the process. But recently, there's been more and more discussion about how necessary cover letters might actually be when it comes to trying to find somebody great when you're hiring. Ben, you've been on both sides of this. How do you feel about cover letters? Are they good, bad? Does it depend? Are they not a big deal? Where do you fall?
I have fallen on both sides of this topic. And Dave, you and I have argued about cover letters in the
We
past just for
we
fun.
have. Yeah, sure. Who doesn't argue for fun about cover letters?
Yeah. And yeah, I've written them. I've read plenty of cover letters.
Yeah.
And I have to say my old take was it's just window dressing. It's
Mm,
boilerplate, like, yeah, here's your form field for a cover letter. I'm gonna read 100 of these things and they're all gonna be basically the same.
sure.
And so I found not a lot of value in them. This is the last time we were
Yeah.
arguing.
Yeah.
And I still think that they can be a bit pandering and
Mm,
just kind of checking a box. So, I mean, take that for what it's worth.
yeah.
But it is part of the game. And I've kind of come around to like, we should be practicing cover letters. They
Mm.
do serve a purpose for both the candidate and the company doing the hiring.
Yeah. I've always been an unabashed fan of cover letters, but I do think that hopefully this isn't too spicy for a Lair Jobs video here. The worse the hiring process, the less important a cover letter feels. And what I mean by worse, maybe worse is the wrong way to put it, the less personal, more automated, maybe not ideal as a candidate, the hiring process is, the more robotic it feels. A cover letter, then you feel like you're just sort of, what am I writing this for? Am I writing this to be scanned by some system?
Right.
Am I writing this for a human to read it? That's tough. And I think that's why people feel burnt out about cover letters. If you have a process where there is a human reading cover letters, at least at some level, maybe you're hiring on a scale where you can't read thousands of cover letters, but once you make that first initial sort of call and and you're filtering down, at some point having somebody actually read a cover letter, I think it can matter, right? You're separating yourself. But also for me, the way I've always approached hiring, the way I always approached trying to be hired, is that like you've got the job description, you've got your resume, you're trying to have the resume line up as cleanly as possible with things that are mentioned on the job description. But sometimes you need to tell a bigger part of the story, or maybe you need to express enthusiasm because you are genuinely enthusiastic about it, right? I do feel like, Ben, I totally hear you, that like it can sometimes feel pandery, right? Like you're just like, it's just another job. I got to say how excited I am and how much of an honor it would be and everything else. But there are hopefully lots of times, but there are definitely times for all of us where no, really, we are excited. We really do want them to know. And so I think the idealist side of me says, yes, absolutely. Cover letters can be great, but I'm willing to hear arguments.
Sometimes you're just feeding the machine. You got to put
Yeah,
something in the box, right?
sure.
I think that the best situation for cover letters on both sides is a situation where the job description or the company's public persona is
Yeah.
well known enough that the
Mm,
candidate knows what they're hiring for. Like you said
mm,
about how grueling is the job application process. Well, what if there's not a lot of information about the job post itself?
yeah.
I don't know as a candidate how to write a cover letter in that situation. It's hard to visualize myself in that role or understand what a hiring manager might be looking for in that role. So, as an employer, it's important that candidates understand you and they understand what you're looking for so they can more accurately communicate how they would fit into your company, how they would be a good fit for that role.
Yeah.
And hopefully as a candidate you can read a accurate or in-depth job description, do your research on a company, and be able to communicate, besides the bullet points on your resume, how you uniquely would fit into this role, what might set you apart, or why they might want to hire you.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, like someone's reading the cover letter and they're so excited that they're like, I need to talk to this person right now. 100%. I've been lucky enough when hiring to read cover letters like that before, where I read them and I was like, oh, okay. Sometimes you actually, like a resume you can look at and, it's a combination of experiences and everything else. But the cover letter to me is where you do get a glimpse. Ideally, you get a glimpse at like, who is this person a little bit. Now
Right.
we're making assumptions that this person can write in a way that effectively communicates who they are, but you at least get something you get some dimensionality, right? You get a little bit more of a bit of information about the candidate. And I don't know, ideally that's why I think cover letters are still good.
As an employer, it also gives you another filter, for better and for
Sure.
worse. It's
Oh, yes, it
another,
does.
and
Yes, it
mostly for
does.
better, I'd say.
Yeah.
It's certainly another way to parse out your applicant pool. It's going to
Yeah.
demonstrate someone's ability to communicate, which in a technical space is definitely something that you're going to require. It gives you
100%.
a sense of personality. So it does give you a number of other ways to reject or push a candidate forward based on the strength of that cover letter.
Yeah. So many jobs, whether explicitly or implicitly, they want someone who can write and communicate well. And sure, you can write on your resume, I can effectively communicate, but resumes can be you're trying to shrink it down to fit a certain like size, and they're not exactly where pros can shine, right? Or where you can actually like write well. But the cover letter, on the good side, you can express just how effective of a communicator you are. On the bad side, if you are not effective, communicating via the written word, the cover letter is it's tough to hide there, right?
Yeah.
It's going to show. Yeah.
So what's the conclusion, Dave? Are cover letters good or cover letters bad?
I think hiring process. This is a whole other video. I think hiring processes can be good or bad, and I think cover letters are just a part of that.
Yeah.
Right. I think that I would say this: if you are a company that is asking for a cover letter, then try to respect the time that people will put into this. It does take time to do that, and have a part of the process where you're not just scanning the cover letter, but someone's actually reading them.
Right.
And look, there might be situations where you as a company can't commit to actually reading all of these cover letters. And if that's the case, that's fine. Then you probably shouldn't have it. And you should figure out some other way if you want information that's not just on a resume.
Totally agree. I'm firmly in the it depends on the rest of your process camp at this point. I've swung over, Dave.
You've swung over. You've seen the light.